Again, good morning and welcome to the Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling Letters Kickoff. It's hard to believe this day is actually upon us. We started the planning just a few weeks ago. Clearly, there is a need for the letters training for so many of you who have joined us here today voluntarily. We started our planning for 50 participants and the numbers continue to grow. We are grateful to have over 289 participants registered for this kickoff. Give yourselves a round of applause. And you're very fortunate to have been chosen because we have close to 100 on a waiting list. This is a testimony of our individual and collective commitment to ensuring that every Alabama student spends the early years learning to read so that the latter years can be spent reading to learn. We all can agree that reading matters tremendously. Students who fail to read at proficient or advanced levels will be disadvantaged in 21st century society. Our future workforce is at jeopardy when students lack the reading, writing, and technical skills necessary to perform at high levels. Reading ability directly impacts and influences economic, health, and social outcomes for individuals and society. At this time, I would like to acknowledge our dignitaries who have chosen to join us for this very important topic. They're standing already and being acknowledged when their name is called. Department of Early Childhood Education Secretary Gina Ross, to my right. Dr. Eric Mackey, Alabama State Department of Education Superintendent, to my right as well. Senior Director of the Department of Early Childhood Education, back there in blue, Dr. Tracy Strichick. I would also like to acknowledge Ms. Gay Finn and ask members of the Department of Early Childhood Education and Voyager Surface Learning to stand and be recognized. They are responsible for ensuring that today is a successful event. Join me in thanking them. This team will be available to assist you throughout today's kickoff. As we prepare to begin our program, I'd like to share a few logistics to help our day run as smoothly as possible. Restrooms are located outside of the entryway and to your left. We will have scheduled breaks throughout the day. Please put your phones on vibrate to ensure we can all fully participate in today's kickoff. To ensure a continued focus on professional learning to gain knowledge about the science of reading in Alabama and to highlight the important work being done, we encourage you to network and share with other educators about today's event. Please use the Twitter hashtag Alabama Letrs, L-E-T-R-S, to tweet about your experience and other important information gained throughout today's event. We will have a Wi-Fi code for you as well. We will follow our agenda as printed. At this time, I'd like to introduce Secretary Gina Ross. Secretary Ross does not require an introduction. Her actions and commitment to Alabama's children speaks volumes. After working with her for just a few short months, I've learned if you have an innovative idea and mention it to her, you better make sure it's based on research, it's been successful with populations and demographics similar to Alabama's, you will be willing to complete a full program evaluation, and you're ready to implement it yesterday. We are very excited to have her join us today. Join me in a round of applause as we welcome Secretary Gina Ross to the stage.
Thank you, Barbara, for your leadership and for all those that worked so hard to pull this amazing group together. I am just, you are the dignitaries. Thank you for being here. Thank you for volunteering to be able to be a part of this select group that's going to lead Alabama. You're going to lead Alabama. You are the lead teachers. You're the ones that matter. It's all about the adult-child interactions and what happens in that classroom as to that child's success, and you know that, and we know that, and we want to provide for you every possible resource and support possible to help you do what you want to do for best for children. This is, well, we never dreamed. When we were sitting in the office thinking about what this might look like, we did think, oh, probably 50 people. And when the applications kept coming in, we couldn't believe it. And we're still trying to scratch up money to see if we can include some others in this wonderful effort. It is a commitment. And if through this day, you feel like, you know, I don't know if I'm really ready for a 2-year course, it's okay. It's okay. You can try it again later. But remember that once we start, it's going to be quite a journey, but I think it's going to be a journey that in the end is going to pay off not only for you as a professional, it's going to pay off for children, not just the children in your classroom, but for the children of all teachers that see your leadership, and how you are teaching and learning continually and trying to improve as we absolutely keep working for excellence in education in Alabama. Governor Ivey is committed to this too. Her education priority, the whole beginning of it, is a strong start because she understands that what you do in the early years matters for that child's success and achievement throughout their school years and also throughout the rest of their life. These early years are critical. So enjoy your time here. Anything that you need that we can possibly put together, that's what we want to do because you're the ones in the field, you're the ones that's doing the work, and you're the ones that the children are depending on. And thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you, Secretary Ross, for your commitment to the Letrs training. At this time, I would like to introduce our State Superintendent, Dr. Eric Mackey. We are thrilled that he was able to join us today for today's kickoff event and that he worked with Secretary Ross throughout this process to bring the Letrs training to Alabama. We know that Dr. Mackey is committed to Alabama's students and that he works tirelessly to ensure that LEA superintendents have the tools they need to be successful, that schools are led by highly competent leaders, and that students are taught by qualified teachers. We also know that Dr. Mackey is data-driven as a leader. His staff will be supporting us with data for Letrs. We are also beginning conversations about endorsements, credentials, and recertification around reading. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Eric Mackey to share remarks with us this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Cooper and Secretary Ross. It's good to see so many teachers here today. Hope y'all had an easy trip to Montgomery. The few I've talked to that came from North Alabama got through Birmingham, they said, rather unscathed. So I hope going back's the same way. I'm only going to take up just a minute because I know that you came for the work, not to hear people just talk, but I do want to say thank you again to Dr. Cooper, to Secretary Ross for bringing this idea to us. We are thrilled to partner with the Department of Early Childhood in bringing the Letrs training to you. There are some other folks that have come in to the room. I may have lost her again. Jay Finn, I could not see her when they recognized her before, but then I saw her come in the room. So in the very back, Jay Finn with our department who's helping with today. Robin Nelson is with us. I know we have some other folks from ARI who are in and out during the day, and we'll be in and out over the next several months. As Secretary Ross mentioned, this is a long-term commitment. It is definitely the opposite of a one-and-done kind of drive in for a day, get some information, take it back. But we appreciate that you are interested. I hope that at the end of the day you still say, yes, we're committed to this, we want to stick with it. But as has already been said, and I'd reiterate, if you look at it and say, we just don't have the ability to commit to this right now, then it's okay. Step aside, because there are so many other people on the waiting list who want to come. It's unfortunate that we didn't have the funds. The secretary had some funds. She came to us. And in fact, we thought it would be enough money for anybody and everybody who wanted to participate. But it wasn't, because there were just the outpouring of people wanting the training was so great. So we are already working in our budget proposal. We have asked for money next year to expand and provide this opportunity for more people. And so if you've got those fellow teachers who said, I really wanted in, but I didn't make it in, please let them know that we're working on trying to expand training as much as we can. Let me say this, thank you for what you do. Teaching reading is in many ways more difficult than rocket science. It is not difficult when you teach the child who comes to you already because they've learned to read. You know, those are great students, because you pick them up where they are and you carry them forward, teaching them comprehension and deeper learning skills. But you have a lot of students who come to you that have never been exposed to the alphabet, students that come to you that cannot read, students that come to you that have a cognitive problem that they want to read, but they don't know that they don't know how to read. And their parents don't know that they don't know how to read. So what you do is really, really important. I have been all over. Some of you heard me talk in the last several months about math, because we want to have we've got to do something to improve math. But do not let that make anybody think that we are dissuaded from our commitment to literacy. We don't learn anything if we don't learn to read. And so literacy is the key. It is the cornerstone of everything we do. I hope you have a great morning. I'm sorry that I can't stay with you. I've got to get back for another meeting at 10:15 this morning. But it is good to see you. And I do want to say thank you for what you do on behalf of children across this state.
Thank you, Dr. Mackey, for your support of the Letrs training and for allowing us to work with Gay Finn on this very important learning opportunity. She's been a godsend. I think I can say that in church. Thank you, Gay. At this time, I'd like to turn your attention to the assurances form you picked up when you walked in this morning. If you can please look for that form, and if you don't have a copy, please raise your hand. We'll come around and get that to you. To my left, we have copies if you need a copy of the Letrs assurance form. As Secretary Ross indicated and as Dr. Mackey shared, this is a major investment for us, and we need to ensure that everyone who's choosing to participate in the Letrs training is on board and will remain committed to the training through the end. On your assurances form, you have several items that have been identified. I will need you to initial next to those items. When you return to your various locations, you will share a copy of this form with your administrator. We need to make sure that your administrator is clear about the commitment that you're making. I know that when you filled out the grant application, you probably had a conversation, but after today, we want them to understand what this commitment means for you, now that you'll have a better understanding of what all it entails. So administrators need to understand the commitment that you are making to participate in the Letrs training. We also needed to be very clear that we will expect all participants to share data. It's important that anything we're working on is data-driven. We're constantly seeking feedback about what's happening in your classroom so that we can learn best from one another about how we continue to improve upon this learning opportunity. In just a short time, we'll have someone speaking with you about the data collection tools that we use at the Department of Early Childhood. Many of you are familiar with the ones that you also use through the State Department of Ed. So we'll be doing a collaboration between both agencies to collect data so that we can complete a program evaluation of the Letrs experience. We also expect that you will utilize the Letrs strategies. Once you are learning these strategies, we expect you to go back to your classrooms and actually have some opportunities to either use these strategies with students or, if you're coaches or administrators, to support at the level in which you are working in a local education agency. We also expect that you'll continue to use formative assessments so that this is helping to drive the instruction that you're doing each day. We know that various LEAs use various measures and various ways for implementing formative assessments each day, so we'll expect you to continue doing much of what you're doing, but just utilize the Letrs strategies as well as part of the work. Letrs grant funds are specifically for the Letrs training, so any funds that will be allocated to your school through the Letrs grant will be expected to be used for that purpose specifically. Ms. Tammy Gibson will be up here shortly talking with you about the founded program that we use to administer the Letrs grant, and she'll share with you far more details than I with regard to how that process works. If you are unable to complete the Letrs training once you've signed up, we will expect that you will return those funds to the Department of Early Childhood Education. Again, we don't expect this to be a one-shot opportunity. We want to continue to be able to provide this opportunity for others, and therefore those funds would then be reallocated to be used for someone else who'd like to participate in the Letrs training. And then finally, we expect everyone to review the assurances annually. Review Letrs assurances annually in order to just recommit yourself, and just a reminder about what the Letrs training entails and what the expectations are. So if you can take a few minutes to look those over and initial next to each one of those assurances, sign it. We will have someone, when you're in your breakout sessions, collecting those Letrs assurance forms. At this time, I would like to invite Gay Finn to the stage to talk with us about opportunities for CEUs and PLUs for the Letrs training. Join me in a round of applause and thank you, Gay.
Good morning. You guys excited to be here? Yay! I'm so excited to be here and be part. In a minute, I'm going to come out and be one of you guys, so I'm excited to go through this training. I hope that none of you will decide to not pursue it after you read the assurances and think more about it, because I believe it is something that is going to make a huge difference for young readers in Alabama, and I am just thrilled to be here and be a part of it. I have been tasked with some of the details around the CEUs and PLUs, and I promise that is coming. I really don't want you to have to sign up every time something is happening, so I'm working on making it one big CEU that starts with today, and then each subsequent time will be included in that. You know what I mean, right? You've done that before. So that will be coming, and I will get that information to you. If you're not hearing from me on the reg, that means I don't have your correct email address, and I've tried to get that from other people in your system. So if you don't hear from me, please shoot me an email at gfin@alsde.edu, and we'll get that straightened out. I know I have at least 3 people that I'm still working on some snags, and so if you guys would, when I step down in a moment, if you would come and see me just over here, we can chat. You know who you are, right? We can chat about that. As for the PLU, I know many of you would be eligible for a PLU if we offered one this, correct? We have, make it worth my while now. I'm writing the PLU. Okay. So I am in the process of writing the PLU. It is due next week and will not be reviewed until November 27th. So it will have to include only things that happen from November 27th, but that will be plenty to qualify for a PLU. Since this is a 2-year study, I'm going to apply for it to be 2 PLUs, one for this first year and then one for the second year if you're going through the K-5 or coach modules. The early childhood module is 1 year, is that correct? So the early childhood module would be 1 year. But that information will come to you soon as it's approved. I have confidence. So as soon as it is approved, I will get you the login information for the PLU and get that going. So when you were called back for to get your materials, you noticed you had yellow dots. Have y'all figured out what it means? I mean, you had different colored dots. You figured out what that means yet? So if you had a yellow dot, you're a pre-K teacher, okay? Because there are some pre-K people that got green dots, right? So if you're a yellow dot, that means you're a pre-K teacher, a pre-K interventionist, perhaps an EL or some kind of teacher. If you got a green dot, you're in the coach category. You're either an administrator or someone from the district level, an ARI reading coach, an instructional partner, a pre-K coach. All of those folks are grouped into one cohort is what we're calling it. And that group will be going through both of the trainings. They will have the advantage of going through the elementary training and the early childhood training so that they're better able to support your system. Doesn't that make sense? Be able to support your system and your teachers in implementation. Because as you know, you can get all the training, you can come for a training, you can get training all along, but it's the implementation where the rubber meets the road, right? So it's in what you take back and what you do back in your classroom is going to make a difference. So we want to support you, and so that's why we kind of divided that group out. So that's the blue dots, and blue dots are your K-3 teachers, interventionists, EL, your EL teachers, or ELL, or whatever we call ESL, whatever we're calling, sorry, English language learner teachers, and interventionists as well. So I think we had one swap because I had one person who was a teacher and a coach, and so, but I hope that we got the rest of you in the right category. If not, let us know and we'll see what we can do. We also have some people here that came with their system that are not going through the training, but came here to support you today, and I'm so glad that you're here to support your teachers and your faculties and your staff as they go through this training. It's not a light duty. It's not light duty. It's going to be heavy duty. It's going to be time outside of your normal day, but it isn't going to be totally worth it. You're just going to really be impressed, I believe, with what you're going to learn, the knowledge that you're going to gain, and what you're going to be able to take back to your kids. So I'm excited, very excited. Did I miss anything? Because I could talk forever, but I won't. Thank y'all so much. And we're coming around with your login information if you haven't received it yet, so we're getting there. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you again today. At this time, I would like to invite Tammy Gibson to the stage. Tammy is the person behind the Founded application and the grant process that you recently gone through to participate with the Letrs training. She'll give you some information about Founded, which is our grant management system, as well as Baseline, the system we will actually be using to collect data. Today, we're not prepared to tell you all of the information around the program evaluation, but we will continue to communicate with you and let you know exactly what will be needed as we move forward with both of those processes.
First of all, don't hold it against me that I'm the founding person.
But that's the hardest part. So we'll move forward, and as you incur any expenses that you need to be reimbursed for, that is the tool that you'll use. So hang on to your login, because you'll need it at least 4 more times, maybe a little bit more. If you are still under your director, you may need to talk to them about putting your name on that, and if you need a log on and you don't have one, shoot me an email. And I think if you don't have it, then your director certainly has my email, but it's tammy.gibson@ece.alabama.gov. And you can find that on our website too. But we'll do that, and then also you'll be introduced to Baseline. Our pre-K teachers may be familiar with that, and I know our administrators are. We'll gather the information from you through that, and like Dr. Cooper said, you will get a lot more information about that, but I, again, will do whatever you need to make that easy for you. Baseline is very, very user-friendly, so don't be concerned about how we gather that information. Founding is the much more difficult tool, and you've already succeeded with that one. I appreciate you guys coming, because I know it was short notice, and I know that when we take this number of teachers out of the field, that it is a challenge. I also want to give a shout out to Charles for being here to videotape it, so that the people that were not able to come will be able to see firsthand the same things that you are seeing. I think that covers Found It, but I know that that's very brief overview, but like I said, I just wanted you to be able to put a name to a face, and that if you need help, that's why I'm here, and that's my role in this whole training, because I can't do what y'all do, so I'll do my thing and try to help you as much as I can. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Tammy. You will also receive information about your grants based on your participation in the Letters training. For instance, pre-K teachers, as we indicated, your training will span over a 1-year period, so your grant will be reflective of what you will need for travel and some of those other incidentals. We've already purchased your Letters materials, so that will automatically be withdrawn from the accounts with regard to what your school will actually receive. So you won't receive funding for the actual materials, because those have been paid for through the Department of Early Childhood, but we will allocate funds based on your travel and some of the other needs you'll have around the training. Today, you will not receive a lot of information with regard to the location of the training, because we're really trying to take a look at what makes the best sense in terms of where we will schedule those trainings. If the majority of the participants are in Limestone County, certainly we wouldn't expect you to come all the way to Montgomery, and Limestone, I believe, has already agreed to host some of the training. So do know that it's a moving target, that we're constantly planning and trying to do what makes the greatest sense in terms of moving forward with scheduling some of these. So information will be available to you ongoing. At this time, I would like to introduce our Letters staff, Ms. Laura. Laura's going to join me shortly, and she will introduce the staff for Voyager Surface Learning. They worked tirelessly. They prepared all of these bags and the other information that will be needed to move forward with the kickoff. Our goal is for you to leave today with as much information as possible with regard to the work that you will be doing around Letters. We had a lot of options. We could have just provided an online log on for you to just move forward with the Letters training, but we thought it was important that we use a blended model and that we have some face-to-face opportunities so that we could really network and grow this into what it needs to become for Alabama. You can call yourselves early adopters because you jumped on the board first and really wanted to move forward with the Letters training. But we will grow based on the information we gain from you. So at this time, Laura, join me on the stage and we'll move forward with our Letters presentation.
Good morning. Good morning. First of all, let me just say thank you so much for being here today. Your level of commitment in coming to this has just been inspiring to me. I've been working on bringing this to Alabama for about 2 years now, so I feel like I've finally given birth to a big Letters baby, and you're all in. And I love it. Thank you so much. The bags in front of you, the team and I put together, there's some little goodies in there, some things for you to munch on while you're doing your online letters trainings, but there's also my contact information in that bag. My business card is in there, and I want you to use it. You may call me, that is my cell phone. You may email me. Whatever you need, I want to ensure that you have everything that you need to feel successful and supported throughout your letters training. And I mean that. Those of you who have worked with me with other types of implementation know that I am a hands-on representative who is here to support you completely. I have some of my fabulous team here with me that I would like to introduce to you. And there they are. First of all, this is Miss Jessica Goodman. She is our Regional Vice President for the southeastern part of the United States, and I'm very happy she made the trip to come see us today. Thank you, Jessica. Many of you may know Montgomery's own Cassandra Wheeler. She is the Regional Vice President for the eastern half of the United States for all professional development for the entire company now. We just happen to get to own her here in Montgomery as well because she lives here. Actually, Pike Road. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Next we have Ms. Donna Neal. She is the Vice President of all professional development for the entire country for Voyager Cypress Learning. And she is, as all these ladies are, truly amazing and is also very hands-on and is here to help you as well. Thank you for being here, Donna. My pleasure. And next we have Ms. Toni Backstrom. She's a letters implementation specialist who came to us from Iowa. And she is going to walk us through your introduction of letters. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Toni.
Steve, the AV guy back there, is going to switch over to the slides for letters. How is everybody this morning? You guys got a little while left in it before you need a break? I promise we're going to take one. I won't make you sit here all morning with nothing else to do. I almost decided this morning that I might talk about football, and then I decided I'm from Iowa. We don't really have the same kind of football. I'm just going to avoid that conversation of football, but I'm not. I like the Hawkeyes, but I did not go there, just so you know that. I've also spent some time in Mississippi. I don't talk about football there either. I'm sure you guys can appreciate that. So I'm really excited to be here this morning to talk to you guys about letters. My job, as we start right now, is to kind of give you a big overview of letters, about the content, the types of things you're going to learn, and how that's going to start to happen. Then we're going to break apart. And we're actually going to have those early childhood folks, I think that's the yellow dot on your name tag. Early childhood, we'll have you split off, and you're actually going to go into some of that online system, and you're going to talk specifically about the early childhood piece. The rest of us will stay in here, and we'll get a little more in-depth into that K-3 or elementary piece. Does that make sense? So that everybody's not having to listen to stuff that doesn't necessarily pertain to them in that moment. But we wanted to get started with generally about letters. And as Laura said, she's been working down here for almost 2 years. I've been down here a number of times with her. The challenge that we have when we start talking about education, and especially literacy, as you know, Dr. Mackey talked about, math is important too, but we have a continued literacy problem in our country. The challenge that we have is that as a nation, we still have a huge percentage of our students and ultimately our adults that are not fluent readers. Is there anybody that thinks that's a great thing and is really proud of that? I'm with you. But what's really holding us back? Why is this such a challenge? Why do we continue to struggle? All educators across the country struggle. Well, it really starts with, it was interesting to hear this morning that it is probably even harder than being a rocket scientist. Our brains were not meant to be readers, right? We aren't born knowing how to read. It's a process that we learn through acquisition of skills. Now, there are some pieces of that are in place at the very beginning. In the left hemisphere of our brain is where literacy occurs primarily. So this is a picture of the left hemisphere of the brain in a proficient reader's brain. So let me say that from the beginning as well. In the left hemisphere of the brain, up in the frontal lobe, right near your temple, is this area that up there talks about pronunciation and articulation. It's where we understand language. English is a language-based system. This might make a little sense. As long as young children can hear, they start to babble and mimic the sounds that they hear being spoken to them. Right? Everybody wants them to say mama, dad, it's kind of a little challenge around households. My son said ball first. But that's in place with our young children as long as there are no auditory issues. They begin to grasp on to those sounds that they hear because they recognize that that is communication. The challenge is when they get to school, we have to sophisticate that so that they get really good at identifying all of those individual sounds. Okay, so some of that circuitry's there. It's just not completely developed yet. Great. So in the occipital lobe on the left hemisphere of the brain, all the way in the back, there's this word form area. That also means in our young children, they begin to understand that there are symbols and that symbols have meaning to them. With infants and young ones, it might be a bottle or a favorite stuffed animal or a blanket, and that it equates comfort to them. It might be that as they get to those toddler ages, see if you can help me with this. There's this big symbol, and it kind of goes like this. It's kind of yellowish, gold. There was meaning attached to that for all of you, just like it is in children. They're beginning to understand that there are these things they see, and there's meaning that they can attach to that. Okay, again, that's beginning, but we as educators have to make that sophisticated. We have to explicitly teach that all those little curves and straight lines and dots, when they form together in certain ways, are letters. And those letters represent those sounds that they hear in those words. So we have to help that. But then, making that connection from the front to the back, that's not in place really at all. And that's where explicit instruction really has to get refined to help them make that connection between those orthographic patterns that they see in print to the words that they have heard in the language. Because again, English is a language-based system. So you might not have known that we've been speaking language for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And it was years later that some people decided to attach a written system to it. That might mean why it's challenging, but there is a code to English. Now there's another part to this whole literacy process, and that happens kind of all in this middle region and has multiple processors in there that work. And they work with vocabulary and background knowledge and context to help our students pull meaning from the words that they're reading, from the language that they understand as they go through. So we have to help make sure all that circuitry in their brain is happening, so it really is kind of like rocket science. The biggest challenge with that is, if it is not natural to learn to read, it's also not natural to know how to teach reading. Unfortunately, the National Council on Teacher Quality in 2006, 2013, 2015 has continued to do studies where they've looked at the syllabi of our universities and our colleges across the country. The majority of them do not teach the science and the research behind even just those big 5 components from NCLB a few years ago. The majority of our teachers that come into the teaching profession come out of their pre-service work without having this information. Now, there are a lot of really great programs on the market that are curriculum programs and intervention programs, and really good, smart teachers like all of you. You pull from that, and even if you didn't have this research before, I know that each of you have begun to pull more of that information out, and you've figured out what seems to be working. The challenge is that you might not know why, or be able to articulate and talk about why. But the longer you're in the profession, The more you recognize when those students respond to the instruction you're giving them, and you know to do more of that. Letters is going to help give you the why behind all of that. This affects our classroom because you guys have lakes and rivers down here too, right? This is a little of my geography. I'm pretty sure there are, because I think I've seen water as I was driving through on the way here. So when you throw a pebble into a lake, not so much a river sort of, but if that water's moving very fast, it isn't going to work. But if you throw a pebble into a lake, it drops in and you get this little teeny ripple, right? And then the next ripple's a little further away, and the next ripple, and the bigger the ripples get, the bigger the boulder you throw in, the longer they go. The challenge is that if we do that, we have to get our students the instruction early, because otherwise there's going to be that ripple effect. That gap is going to get bigger each year they go through school, and we haven't been able to intervene with the right intensity, with the right interventions, with the right skill areas to be able to close that gap. So if we think about a child being able to get to 5th grade and having a writing sample like this. Now I wouldn't say let's talk about this, except we could probably spend all day long talking about this. Anybody see something that might concern you if this was a 5th grader writing that they turned in? A couple things that might cause you to have some concerns if this is a 5th grade student? Okay, so we don't have enough time to really go through everything. But if we even just look at that word astronaut for a moment, words have a story to tell, right? Every word has a story to tell us. If we look at that word astronaut, by the time students in 5th grade with really good explicit instruction, we would want them to know the story behind this. We might want them to recognize that there are 2 morphemes in astronaut, 2 meaningful parts to that word. That would be astro, star, and not, traveler. Okay, they might not know the meaning of those 2, but we would hope that they could identify there were 2 meaningful parts in that word, 2 morphemes. We would hope that they could break that word down into syllables. Those 3 syllables in the word astronaut. Syllables help us to understand, 1, how to spell a word, right? They help us to understand how to pronounce the word if we have to read it back. Does anybody know how many syllable types there are in the English language? 6, I heard somebody else 6, that's right. By the time you're finished with letters, you're going to know all 6, you'll be able to describe them, you're going to be experts. We'd also want them to recognize every individual sound in that word and be able to enunciate each sound in that word. And then we would need them to recognize that there's the equal number of graphemes as there are phonemes. But then they'd have to recognize that one of those phonemes has a team. It's 1 grapheme, but it's 2 letters. So there are more letters in that word than there are graphemes or sounds. By 5th grade, we would hope our students could do this if we asked them to. So are you guys ready to do this with some words? Break them down into all of these? You kind of all went, oh, I'm not so sure about that. I'm not going to put you on the spot right now and ask you to do that. But we want our 5th grade students, especially at that point, to be able to do this. But we start with phonemes first, the sounds, and then we begin to layer on the orthographic patterns in those graphemes, and they have to know the letters in order to do that. Those are those most foundational skills that we start at those earliest grades, and we want to make sure those are solid. That foundation is there before we move on. We don't always talk about morphemes in kindergarten. Perhaps probably not the most appropriate thing, although if it comes up you can, but that's not the focus of the exam, correct? So, as we go through, there are implications here because if you think back about that grapheme, phoneme, and then the letters, right? There were 2 letters that in 1 grapheme. If we looked at that aw sound, that last vowel sound in astronaut, aw, it's one of 19 vowel sounds. Some of these are really similar. If our students can't discern those very minute differences, you might notice if you start at the top and start to go down and then go back up, if you make those sounds to yourself, sometimes your jaw barely changes. It's very, very minute differences in those. But that's going to affect the graphemes that are used in order to spell those sounds. Now these are only the vowel sounds. They also have a whole bunch of consonant sounds. Right? There are 44 speech sounds in the English language. I would bet that not every single one, well, I actually do now because I've been working with Louisa Moats for 16 years. But before that, I did not know that there were 44 speech sounds in the English language. I couldn't have identified every single one of those speech sounds. Our dialects from different areas of the country impact whether or not we've heard some of these sounds, right? A former colleague of mine is from Boston, and they add the R sound and they drop the R sound all the time. I live in Iowa, Minnesota is right to our north, and they emphasize that long O sound on everything. My sister says wash instead of wash. I'm not sure why it doesn't have that R in that spelling at all. No one else in our family has ever said it that way. I'm not sure where she got that. But all of those dialect pieces make a difference as well. And I will say this, it's important that we honor the dialect of the students that we have in front of us, and we need them to recognize all 44 speech sounds of the English language because they have to learn English in order to read English. But we do need to honor, and so you can have a conversation about casual conversation and academic conversation in language. And that when we're in school, we need to focus on the academic. Playground, casual conversation, building background knowledge, we want to have those conversations, and you want to help them honor that culture, that dialect from where they are from. I come down here and my family tells me that I start to say y'all every time I'm in the South when I go home. And I'm pretty sure, I think I said it when I was standing up here first thing this morning. We pick that up from where we are, and when you go somewhere else, it begins to morph and change because English is a language-based system. We mimic what we hear. I love to hear people from Australia or the UK speak, or Ireland. There are very minute differences in the way they pronounce the exact same words. And that's important for our students to understand as well. But they need to understand that while there are 44 speech sounds, those thousands of years after we've been speaking English and that group of people got together and put a written system with it, they decided to only use 26 letters. It adds a little challenge to the process and to the process of learning to read, but there are rules, and if we can give those to our students, it unlocks that code for them. And it helps it to make sense for them. Because if we don't do that, that ripple effect comes back. And if we don't check all along the way that everything is still solid, that those foundational skills are still there, when we layer on the next skills, we might have lost them again. We have to check. Anybody noticed a difference in teaching? And students are doing pretty well with CVC words, and they're ready to go, and they're getting into second grade, third grade, they're doing pretty well, and then all of a sudden they get multisyllabic words. Right? And they fall. Because we have to help them then and take them that next step in their learning. Right? That's where morphology comes in, and word origin in, and helping them to understand those parts of the language and those words so that they can put them together. So in letters, there's a few models that we like to attach everything to. It's really difficult, especially, I mean, I can say this personally as a learner. I like to have something to attach it to, so you're talking about something, but I want to attach it to something else so that it's more concrete for me. One of them that we use is the simple view of reading. It can be a little misleading, but this is great for this purpose. Our end result, the product of this mathematical equation that's up here, is that we want readers who comprehend. We want skilled readers. We want them to interact with the text. We want them to infer the author's intent. We want them to question what they're reading and relate it to something else that they know while they're doing that. That's the ultimate goal, is to get them there. In order for them to get there, there are these two big tops: foundational skills and language comprehension. Do they know the sounds and the spelling patterns, those foundational skills? Do they have a bank or multi-sight words? And then, do they have background knowledge? Do they understand the vocabulary? Do they understand the punctuation in the sentence? Those have to be there. So work with me here. This is a math problem. I will pull you along. I will not leave you floundering. If you have a student who is able to decode a first grader CVC words, they can decode. But they don't have any background knowledge about what they're reading, and they do not have access to the vocabulary. If they have a 1 times a 0, the result is 0. You guys are awesome. And that was math. Now the reverse is true. You have a student who in first grade cannot decode. They cannot crack that code. But when you read aloud as a group, they are engaged in the story. They want to retell you all about what they heard. They can relate it to something else that happened in their life. They have a 0 times a 1, but that result is still 0. Both of those have to be in place. Does that make sense? Now, we like to use this model a little better. You can go ahead and pull out those pipe cleaners, because you're actually going to do a little craft project. And I am not crafty, by the way. But we like to use Hollis Scarborough's reading rope. You might notice up on that screen that lower strand is blue. It kind of relates right back to that first box that was all the way on the left. Word recognition. And that top part of the rope is red, that language comprehension. So yours might look sort of like this after you redo it 3 or 4 times. Trust me, if you guys can make it look like this the first time, you should travel around with me. But if you'll first take the light green and the dark green and the dark brown, we're going to start with these. I like to think of these now as kind of braiding them together. Does everybody have the pipe cleaners? Raise your hand if you do not have pipe cleaners. We have a couple over there, a group over there, a couple back here. We might have some bags at another table nearby that will be around if somebody needs them, but I have some helpers who are coming around. So keep your hand raised, or if somebody walks by, let them know. So if we take those 3, we do have to recognize that all 3 of those are individual and distinct skills that are important. But then we begin to braid them together. I know most of you are better braiders than I am. So as you begin to braid that all the way to the end, but leaving the beginning as those individual skills, I always think of that light green as the sounds. It's the very beginning, almost like spring. The very beginning of English, of literacy, are those speech sounds. Then we begin to layer on an understanding of those orthographic patterns. And then we make the connection between the orthographic patterns, the letters, and the sounds. And then we have that deep soil that is our vault of sight words. So when you see sight words, sight recognition up there, what do you think? Just yell out. If somebody said sight words, what first comes to mind? Flashcards, heart words, fry words, high frequency words. Was there any others? Anybody think so? Right? So if I asked you at the very top of that screen in black, what's the second word? And in the second line, what's the last word in black? Reading. Did any of you have to break that apart and go, no. So as we become fluent and automatic and accurate, when we are fluent readers, we have a vault, a bank of sight words because we have come in contact with that order of spelling patterns, with those patterns of letters so many times that faster than I can snap, your brain processed and recognized that orthographic pattern, and you knew the word. The more our students begin to read, and they read accurately and fluently, they are building that vault of words so that they become more sight words, so that we don't have to rely on decoding all the time. Now, as you get done with that, you can take the rest together, and we're going to work on the top part of that, of the rope. Oh, I should say, at the bottom, I don't know, this might just be me, but it kind of seems like they're braiding together. As soon as you know the 44 speech sounds in the English language, you know the 44 speech sounds. When you know the orthographic patterns that represent all of those sounds, you know them. So we weave them together, and that builds that strong foundation. On the top, it kind of looks to me like it's spirals. Right? When Dr. Scarborough put this together, it kind of seems like it spirals. I almost imagine that's as if it never ends, and it kind of just keeps spiraling together. I think of the light blue as that first strand. As we think about background knowledge, if our students have background knowledge, the sky's the limit of what they can understand and comprehend. When I think about vocabulary, words are gold. Words are the currency of literacy. If we think about those language structures, sometimes we gotta stop. Red. Hold up. What does that semicolon mean? What does that exclamation point mean? Maybe it was a pronoun. Sometimes we have to stop and think about what it is we're reading and make sure that we're really with it, or we're on track. When you get to verbal reasoning, this is one of those skills that has got to be one of the hardest to teach. If you think about verbal reasoning, it's kind of a royal skill. Very high level. You could imagine royalty speaking in very flowery language. Think about metaphors. Think about similes. It can be hard to get our students to understand the meaning behind those. To dig a little deeper into the words and the way in which they're there to really understand what was being intended. 2 peas in a pod doesn't always mean literally there were 2 green peas in that pod that they took off the plant from the garden. There's some more meaning for that, but it's a little more abstract, and we have to teach those skills to our students. And then we have print knowledge, we have literacy knowledge, we have what's actually on that page. At a very beginning age, it becomes you read from front to back, top to bottom, right. It expands into they have to understand the difference between the different genres of literature. All of these discrete skills we teach. And then we have to weave them all together, and they're all interconnected. And so while we have 2 strands of the rope, eventually the intent is that it is all together. That it becomes increasingly automatic and accurate and fluent. See, this is the one I just did now really quick, and this is the one that's been done really slowly and with meaning. So seriously, I've taken these apart regularly and redo them to make them look prettier. This was not a test of your artistic crafting ability. Now, when we think about instruction that happens in the classroom, any given lesson is not necessarily going to have every single strand addressed. But over the course of days, of multiple lessons, they will. That might look different, it should look different at kindergarten than it does at 3rd grade. It should look different in the whole class versus with your struggling students in small groups. Through the research, through what you will learn in Letters, You will be able to attach all of that right back to this. I would take this with you to your trainings. I'd have it next to your desk when you're going through that online work. You will see this often as you go through. Everybody keeps looking at my robe. It is pretty awesome, isn't it? You do them enough times, and I'm telling you, practice does make much better. Not perfect in my case, but much better. So as we go through with Letrs provides the scientific reading research behind all of these skill areas. It takes the last 30 plus years of scientific reading research and synthesizes it all together in one place. So I have been with Letrs for almost 16 years now. The basis and the core remains the same. We have this newest version that all of you are going to be a part of, and we're really excited about this new version. We were able to include the latest research. Fortunately for all of us, all that other research is still happening. So we didn't have to start from scratch. The newest research helps us refine what we already knew from research so that we can get a little deeper and a little more discrete. We've been able to, over those 16 years, refine the activities that we use and the experience for all of you so that it gets better and better and better. We have been able to do that in this new version to make it so that it is incredibly relevant for each of you and what you do every day with the students that you have in your classroom. We've made it so that it's interactive. We'll go over in a moment exactly what that means, but you will be engaged in that learning in multiple ways along that journey. We're going to have you take it back into your classroom, as Barbara talked about earlier. This isn't just to sit and learn and not do anything with it. We want you to actively take it back and have it change your instructional practices. Maybe not all of them. You all do great things. But I know that it will help you do more great things as you refine that instruction in the classroom. When we know better, we can do better. And that's what Letrs is going to do here. It's going to help all of you to be the expert in front of your students. I personally believe, our company believes, the Letrs author team believes, that teachers are the most important factor in student success. There are great curriculum programs, there are great intervention programs. They do not teach, they are the tool in which you teach. You are the most important person in that student's day when they come into your classroom every day. And I don't think I have mentioned this before. Letrs is not a curriculum, and it is not an intervention. It is professional development for you. So your leaders at the state are not investing in another program, they're investing in you. They're giving you the expertise through all of that research to know best what to do for every one of your students. So let me say that again, this is not a curriculum and it's not an intervention. You do have a book in those bags that they gave you, but that's like your textbook for you. There's not a script in there that's going to say do this and then have your students do this. It's not a teacher's edition. That is for you. I hope all of you will thank these leaders too, because it doesn't always happen that you get really in-depth professional development that can change your practice and give you expertise that you haven't had before without giving you another program and now you have to redo everything you've been doing every day. This is truly an amazing journey that you're going to be on. I mentioned before those big five. Does everybody know what those big five are? They're up there on the screen. They're important. Letrs talks about all of those because they are critically important. They're the most important. But we know from research that that's not all that goes into good literacy instruction. There is more to it than that. And so we cover oral language, we cover spelling, the writing and reading connection, encoding and decoding. We want to make sure that we've given everything that you need to be the best literacy teacher that you can be. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the author. So in each of our breakouts in a minute, you'll hear a little bit more about the additional authors. But the primary author of all of Letters and everything in the Letters family is Dr. Louisa Moats. I put up here, there's a couple awards that she's gotten that I've added because I think they're important. One is there's an organization called the Reading League, and it's in New York State, and they're having their conference actually this week right now. And bless you. And Louisa, Dr. Moats, is being awarded their first ever award, which is pretty remarkable. The other one that I think is also really important, Louisa has been on the board of directors for the International Dyslexia Association for years. She's been very, very involved in the dyslexia world, and in 2013 she received their highest honor. And so when we say we have this great team of authors, and we are incredibly fortunate to be able to work with Dr. Moats and have this wealth of knowledge that is hers from her years in the field, and her dedication and her passion for teacher knowledge being the key for students' literacy success. We mean it, and we are incredibly fortunate to have her with us. So Dr. Moats is the primary author of Letters and all of the supplements and pieces within the Letters family. And then she works with a team. We have about 25 trainers that assist us out in the field as we come out and we do those trainings. All of them are hand-selected by Dr. Moats. They all go through a vetting process. They all go through regular PLCs together. They regularly have to continue to look at research and learn themselves. And they have an annual meeting as well, but they have regular webinars where they bring research together and have discussion. So even at the level that Dr. Moats has achieved in writing this, she still continually engages as a learner with the newest research coming out, so that as you're going through this training, know that it truly is the very latest. In those conversations with the trainers, as you have them, they will be able to help give you access to that very latest research in everything that you might ask them. If they don't have it, they will go back to their team of colleagues and they will find it. Because we do know that not everybody can know everything at every moment. But I did want to say that I know that you will have a fabulous time as you go through this journey. It will empower you as a teacher to know you are doing the right thing in the right time. It will help you to change your instructional practices in the classroom because it helps to integrate that research and those instructional strategies into what you're already doing in the classroom. Again, this is not with a new curriculum, and it's not with a new intervention. This is going to make you a better consumer of the tools your districts have already given to you. To know how to choose which intervention, how to choose which small groups to use for which students. So here's a question. As we go through that, you all use assessments of some kind, correct? Screeners, formative assessments, writing samples, spelling tests. We have all kinds of different types of assessments that you use, correct? So if you're assessing and all of them as we get to here in the strand are working well, do we stop assessing? No. Because what happens if all of a sudden, I'm going to use this one instead. What happens if all of a sudden there's a breakdown that happens all the way up here? Your rope might come apart. We talked earlier about second, third grade seemed like they're okay, and then all of a sudden they hit multisyllabic words. And all of a sudden they start crashing. We have to assess all along the way. Because each time they're encountering new text, new skills, we have to be able to check in and make sure that everything else is still solid. Go back, do a little check, do they still remember all that? So when I went back, if I'd asked you to give me every phoneme in astronaut, the majority of us would stop for a moment like, oh. If I'd said, what are the morphemes? What are those syllables? We would all have to stop. Now, one reason for that is when you're a fluent reader, it happens so fast and automatic. We have to like, whoa, and take a step back and dial back everything that we've trained our brains to already do. But we also want to assess with our students to make sure that it's still there. Because sometimes for some students it can be there and then all of a sudden it's gone. So we have to double check and make sure it's there along the way. I can also say that it's that acquisition of new information. So my nephew was never going to go to college, went to community college to appease his mother for a year, and then decided to go to the UC Boulder, University of Colorado Boulder, and he graduated with, I don't know how many degrees, physics, astrophysics, applied mathematics, I don't know who this kid is anymore. He went from gamer, I'm going to make my money online, gaming, to now I'm an astrophysicist. I'm not sure that he has a job yet with that, but one Thanksgiving, he came home, and he's with the family, and he's got this problem on his phone that literally his phone was like this, and it was completely filled with some math problem. And he goes, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I can't figure out this problem." I'm like, "Yeah, no kidding. Who can figure out that problem?" He goes, No, it's related to this, and he pulled out this textbook. He's like, it's right here. So I started reading, and I think I got 4 words in, and I was right back here. Right back at the very beginning, right here, and right here. Do I know any meaningful parts in this word? Do I know if there is a root word in here? Okay, do I know how many syllables this is? Because I have no idea how to pronounce this word. And he could just read it because he's encountered that. So it's a reminder for us also, as those students get to that 5th grade or 9th grade. Maybe it's 3rd grade, and all of a sudden something stops and there's a block somewhere. Ooh, we got to go back because that learning continues, and sometimes we have to go back to the basics and make sure they're in place and build them back up again. In this new model, for this implementation, there are 3 components to it. There is online work that you will do. I believe all of you received a username and a password as you checked in. You don't need them now, just want to make sure you have them. If not, we're going to take a break. And during that break, if you don't have them, check out front or at the back, and Gay has them, so if you need those. But we're not quite there yet. But, so when we do that, you'll have that online component, and that goes through. You'll do that throughout the course of time. That's accompanied by that print book that you have with you that you got in the bag you received at the back of the room. If you didn't get those at the break, go back and get them. They're important. I will give you a hint. As you go through the online course, there is information that is in the text that is not online. They are meant to be a companion. Because there are some checks for understandings. We'll talk about this as we break apart a little more. But just that insight for you. Give you a little heads up before you embark and jump in there. That online learning with that text learning will be supplemented by face-to-face work that you will do. That you will come back together in your groups X number of times over that course of study that you will also get as we break into the 2 breakouts. So you will have face-to-face time that will solidify the learning. If there was any confusions, if you have questions about anything, it will bring you back together to connect you together once again. You're not alone in this journey. Use one another for those questions you have. And I love it because I can already see team spirit. There's teams sitting together. Some of them in the back all got the red shirts on. So they probably get the spirit award at the moment. But use that connection that you have with one another as you go through this course as well. Okay? It all comes back down to teachers matter. That means every one of you matter. You matter more to your students than just about anything else going on in their life. For some of them, you are the very most important thing in their life right now, perhaps. No matter what else they have going on in their lives, you are one of the most important factors in their lives when you have them in your classroom. You are the one that opens up the world of learning to them, and they cannot do that without literacy. You are unlocking their future every single day. We're excited that Letrs is going to be used to help you be better at what you do. To make you be the very best teacher that you can be in teaching literacy for your students, so that you can be confident and empowered knowing that you are doing exactly what every one of the students that comes into your classroom every single year, meet them exactly where they are right now, and you know for every one of them exactly where they need to go next, and you can take them there. And with that, we're going to take a break. Give me 1 second before we break. If you have that yellow dot, right? Yellow is early childhood? If you have that yellow dot and you are early childhood, when we come back from that break in 15 minutes, you will actually take your things with you and go upstairs to 7208. It's kind of, you come out these doors and turn to your left, go through the first double doors. There's a set of stairs. Or if you would prefer, go through the next set of double doors and there's an elevator. To the second floor, go to your right, all the way down the hallway, and the room is on your left. And you'll be with my colleagues Donna and Cassandra upstairs as they will take you into that early childhood online content and talk to you more specifically about early childhood. The rest of you will come back right here and we will jump into the Letrs Elementary K-3 piece. There are snacks still out if you need something as you leave. Again, 15 minutes from now would be 10:45, and if you did not get your login credentials, your username and password, go out to that front table where you checked in and they'll have them for you. Thank you. If you're still grabbing a final snack, feel free to do that. If you need more coffee, I hope I'm not that boring, but I will not take offense. If you need to go get more coffee, I'm a caffeine lover as well. Thank you all for coming back. Everybody take a quick check. Look at your name tag. Do you see a yellow dot? If you see a yellow dot on your name tag, you are in the wrong place. And we should have you head back upstairs. Otherwise, blue and green, I believe, are the other two colors, are supposed to be right in here with us. So we now are going to get a little more into this course that all of you have been voluntold or volunteered for. And we're going to get, because I get voluntold a lot of things. We're going to get you into this a little bit more. We want you to see what that online system looks like. We're going to show you how to navigate through there. You will actually log in. Not yet, you could, but don't worry about it. We'll get you there. But we want to make sure that you have seen it and you're familiar with it instead of just sending you an email, hey, go to that system and log on. We like it if it's a little more personal than that. Then we can answer questions, or I'm not very techy, but I could get a help desk on the line, or how to find them if we can't work through it. So as we think about this and we go through, again, you kind of met Dr. Motes earlier, and I told you a little about her. We'll actually hear from her in a couple of minutes. With this latest version, Dr. Carol Coleman is a co-author with Dr. Motes. She is a national letters trainer. She has trained all over the country for more than 16 years. She has 20 plus years of teaching experience before that. And so they worked together with an advisory team of trainers that had been around for those 15 or 16 years when they created this latest version together. When we go through that, we said before that this is a course. This is a journey you're embarking on. Over these 8 units, it will take you about 2 years to complete. One of the reasons for that, I actually hit something that I didn't hit. One of the reasons for that is because if you learn something too fast and you can, I kind of know that and move on, and sometimes you don't always use it. Like I know that I should not eat French fries and I should work out every day. Yeah, that doesn't happen. We know information, but it doesn't always change our best practices. And so, we want this to be, go as fast as you can or need to, but slow down at every point. So there will be those checkpoints as we come in between. You are going to start with units 1 through 4. Units 1 through 4, as you look at those titles up on that screen, might remind you of that lower strand of that rope that you made earlier. Those 4 units are those foundational skill areas. That word recognition, the blue in the simple view of reading, and the blue lower strand of the rope. In those 4 units, that this is that first 1 year. It's the first chunk that you're going to embark on. When I said that, I almost thought, you know what went through my head? I don't know why that happened, but each of those units will have 8 sessions. And that's important. Each of those sessions is a small chunk, so that it's not you having to go through hours and hours and hours of online at one time. Each of those sessions is about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 45 minutes in total. And let me tell you what's included in that. That's this online system that we're going to show you. You'll have these leaders and guides through the research in the online system. You'll have some PowerPoints you go through that have audio. You'll have activities embedded all the way through it. You'll have video of classroom instruction happening that you're observing in relation to the research that you're learning about. So you're actually seeing instruction happening as it relates to it. You'll be journaling in there so that you're reflecting on that. That also includes that textbook reading. Because remember, I gave you that hint. Not everything is duplicated in both places. There is also a bridge to practice activity with each session. That bridge to practice activity is the application piece that we want you to take that back to your classroom and use it. Now, don't get scared. It's not like all of a sudden you've got another 45-minute lesson to fit into your day somehow. That is not the intent. What we'd like for you to do, however, is it might take a few minutes. We're going to ask you to follow 3 struggling students over the course of those 4 units. Identify 3 of your struggling students. They're going to talk about this as you go through that first unit too, and how to identify them. You're going to have a folder for each one of them, and you're going to follow each of those for this bridge to practice through every session. One time it might be, now that you know about the simple view of reading, reflect on those 3 students. Where do you think they struggle, and why? It might take you 5 minutes a student to think about that and to reflect your thoughts. Another point might say, now that you've learned these 3 strategies, use one of these instead of the lesson that you were going to use sometime this week. We don't want you to have to spend a lot of time doing additional planning. Y'all are way too busy already. But we do want to find ways that are meaningful that we can help to impact and make more intentional some of those instructional decisions. So sometimes that bridge to practice might be 10 minutes, sometimes it might be 20 minutes. But it might not be all at one time, it might be over the course of a few days with those students. Does that make sense? And they're all a little bit different, but by the end of units 1 through 4, you're gonna have a portfolio for each one of those students, where if your principal came in and asked, your superintendent came in and asked, somebody from the state asked, your mom asked what you've been doing at work, you can show them, and you can document, look what I've been learning and how it's impacting my students. Because you're gonna have that, because you're gonna track it and keep it. Also with each one of those sessions, at the end of them, so it's about that hour and 15 minutes, hour 45 minutes in total. Online work, reading, bridge to practice. There's also a check for understanding. It's 5 questions about that content on that session you just read. Just that session. A quick check. Same thing we do with our students. With those check for understandings, you get 2 attempts to take them. So if you take the first one, you're like, oh, I got this. You take it, you're like, oh, that was a 20%. Oh, that is not gonna do. You can go back, you can review, you can look at the videos again, you can read the textbook again. You could slow your roll, and you can take it a second time. I'm guessing you're probably gonna get an 80 or 100% because you've spent the time. You knew that you needed to go back and check. Those check for understandings, if you don't get them right, it will actually tell you which ones you got wrong. So that you actually know, oh, okay, when it talked about this area, this subject, yeah, I was kind of confused. Maybe I should go back and look at that again. Maybe you talk to a friend, right? So we want you to have those little checks along the way. After those 8 sessions in Unit 1, for instance, there will be a unit assessment. It's a quiz, 12, 15 questions. Again, only on Unit 1. You get 2 attempts to take that one as well. We want you to be able to be successful. We want you to know if there's an area you need to kind of review again because maybe something didn't really hook on somehow, to be able to go back and do that. At the end of each of those units, you will be able to print out a certificate. It'll be one of two options. It will be a certificate of completion, you went through the content, or it will be a certificate of mastery. The certificate of mastery will be your option if on those check for understandings and that unit quiz, you have an average score of 80% or better. So if you get a 40% on one check for understanding and you get hundreds on the rest of them, you have an average score of 80. You would still have a certificate of mastery. But the content is gated, so you can't skip after the intro. I have a little workaround for the intro for you. However, when you get into Unit 1, you have to start with Unit 1, Session 1. You have to complete it and go to that check for understanding and complete it. Then you can go to Unit 1, Session 2. So you can't just skip to the end of Unit 1, take the end of unit assessment and go, got 80%, I know that, I'm out of here. You actually have to go through the content. I will actually tell you that having done this for 16 years and I still attend trainings, I'm still going through the online content all the time, I still learn something every single time I'm there. It's presented in a different way. My paradigm is different, and so I hear it differently now than I did 16 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 3 weeks ago. We have a different experience that happened. I have, oh, somebody told me that story. You know what, that's what they were talking about. And so that changes and goes along. Even if you think you know all about one of these areas, I will guarantee you that you will learn something. If not, you can contact Laura Wolf, and she will bring you treats. And she didn't know that I was going to say that, but or I will come back and do it, because you will learn something, even if you're already familiar with that subject area. Now, you also probably see pre-test and post-test up there. Does that make anybody anxious? Go ahead, be honest, it's all right. I could feel it as soon as you saw that, and I hadn't said anything about it yet. There is a pre-test before Unit 1. There's a post-test after Unit 4. We're going to talk about this. You're actually going to take it today. Don't freak out. It's a pre-test. You are not expected to know all this information. Absolutely not expected to know all that information. But it'd be great if you have a baseline of where your knowledge is. It would be great if you had an idea of some of the types of things you're going to learn. It would be awesome if after Unit 4, you could say, look how much I learned, because my post-test is way better than my pre-test score. So there's a pre-test and a post-test. Those you only get one chance to take. It's kind of like when we work with our students. You might give them a pre-test, you give them a post-test, get one time. But all along the way, you have checkpoints for you to know where any of your weaknesses or confusions or where you need to study a little harder. Might be just like we do with students that we serve. So we're going to get into that in a second. But again, we talked about that there are these different pieces and components. So we're going to go through the online system in a minute. We're going to actually walk you through it. We're going to show it to you. You will eventually log in, and we'll take that pre-test. There's also that text. You have that in that Lakeshore bag that they gave you, but that's your text that goes with all of that online. But then there's also this face-to-face piece, and I mentioned that earlier as well. We have some help coming around, and they will be handing out to you. You will receive it if you haven't yet. The coaches and administrators have a little bit different path than the K-3 teachers, but you will get 2 pieces of paper. On that will tell you your pacing guide of about how long to plan for each unit and each session as you go through. It will also have a schedule of what days are your face-to-face days. Now, I didn't look really closely. It could be that there are some different days because we don't usually train 300 people at one time. There are groups of 40. So your specific days, if it's not a specific day on here, will be sent to you as you are put into cohorts of which exact day of the couple that are listed, so that you know exactly which day will be yours, but it gives you an idea and a time frame right now before you leave, and then Barbara and her team, Dr. Cooper, will be getting that to you, right? Correct? Okay. So that you'll know and you'll be able to plan to be there. Those face-to-face days are really important. It brings you all back together because it can be a little isolating sometimes to be in an online setting and you're interacting with the computer and you're reading and there's no other interaction. Sometimes you think that you understood something, But sometimes if it's explained and you do an activity in person around it, it helps solidify that a little more. They'll be able to review if there are areas that were confusing. Those trainers will be able to work through that with you right there on the spot. They'll be able to help make additional connections back to classroom instruction and what are the implications for that. Questions that you all have about how this information in a specific area might relate to the students that you serve or a particular student. You then have access to those experts when they're there with you in that face-to-face setting. So those are critically important to be able to go through. Now, we are going to go online, and I'm going to tell you that we don't have a way for me to have my computer up here, so I have my shadow Laura back there, and she's going to help us as we go online. So we're going to ask for a little patience if we don't have our dog and pony show quite ready to go yet. So we are going to go online. You don't have to do it yet. You can pull your stuff out and begin to go if you want to. We will pull that back up when you get ready to go on. If you want to go ahead and come to this page, you can. If you have your device out. Laura, you want to go back to the PowerPoint that has the web address on there so that you guys can see it. You do not have to have the https:// You can start with Letrs, L-E-T-R-S, .voyagersopris.com. The website will not work on your phone, but it should work on any laptop. It should work on tablets. And you should have received your username and password. There might be one or two people, I understand, that might not have gotten theirs. Bear with us. It should be the Fraser Guest Wi-Fi. If you haven't gotten there yet, it should pop up. The Wi-Fi is not working.
Slow. It says very slow.
So I'm going to ask Dr. Cooper if she can make sure that the Wi-Fi is working, because some of them are having difficulty getting on to the Fraser Guest Wi-Fi. Yes, Steve? Public? So when they hit on public, and it takes them to Google, but then it will not take them to the website, it says no internet access. So we'll go ahead and go on. Did everybody make note of that website? And we'll keep trying, and we'll have Steve and Dr. Cooper try to help us with that maybe, and if we can check with a person or two at the back to help figure that out. But I still want to be able to show you, because you don't have to be logged in quite yet. So we have a minute to be able to do that. But this is what that login page will look like. So you will log in and click login as you get there. For the coaches, and we'll see if it'll work for us. She's going to type in the new one that's supposed to be up there. Ohio Test 7, so that I can show you more. I have multiple logins. Me when I'm going through on my own, me when I'm going through and testing, and I click random stuff to try to break the system. And then the one that has all of it done so we could go anywhere in the content and show you anything that we wanted to. So while she's trying to do that, and we hope the internet works for her. If not, I'll hand her my phone and she can get on my hotspot. When you come onto that login page, for those of you that are coaches, administrators, you will have two options when you log in. For the time being, we want you to select the Letrs course, not the Letrs Early Childhood. That group, you will have access to both courses. For the K-3 teachers in the room, when you log in, it will actually just come up to the Letrs page. So if you saw something a little different than mine's going to look like in a minute if she can get the Wi-Fi to work, then I wanted you to know why it looks different. When we get in there, the internet connection is always going to have some factor in what you're doing. So you want to make sure that we've got the good connection, which I did earlier sure when I tested it. And guess what? Sometimes it goes away because it's the internet. It's like magic. And it's there and then it's gone. But we also want you to know that at any point, unless you're in the middle of a check for understanding or a middle of a quiz, that would not be saved if you get knocked off or you go away and you have to come back. Otherwise, you're able to go right back to where you were. At any point, say you get through Unit 2, Session 5, and all of a sudden, but remember Unit 1, Session 3, it had that piece? I'm going to go back and listen to that again. You can go back. You can go back at any time to anything. It will not let you retake those check for understandings after you've done it twice. It will take the quiz you can't do once you've done it twice. Some of the activities won't let you fully do them again. Some of them it will. But all of the video is still there, and you can still see all of the activities, even if you haven't gone through there. Laura, would you like my phone to connect to? Let me get that for her. Is anybody else able to log on yet? We're going to have Steve, our handy dandy AV guy, help us too. See if we can figure it out. All the best laid plans, you know? I'm techier than I thought I was. If you are a coach, you will see the first two circles when you log in. For K3 teachers, Laura's going to click on that Letrs position, and when she does that, you will see, I'm not going to stand up. Do I have to stand up there? Yep, click on that one, Laura. And so as a teacher, you will log in and it will directly come to this screen. You will not have the button that you will select. So you're able to get in the login you're feeling? Yeah. Oh, okay, I will figure that out too as we go through it. Just one after another. So, I first want you to know on the right hand of the screen, you'll notice that it says intro and it goes through Unit 8. You'll notice on this one, Unit 8 is highlighted and it's complete under course. This is one of those accounts where we've gone through everything. If you had not gone through everything, those would be gray. They wouldn't be that bright white, they'd be gray. So, as you scroll up in that one, Laura, so you can see the beginning of this one is actually the very first session. As you complete a session, you would come back to this navigation and it would have a check mark next to it. That would indicate that you're done with that one, you could go to the next one. So that you always understand exactly where you are in the content as you go through. On the left-hand side is this hamburger menu. I did not know that's what they were called until the tech department told me that's what they're called. Under there, first we're going to go, home is always going to take you to right where you are right now. If you select journal, you'll have access to every journal entry that you've created as you've gone through. As you click on that journal, you can go through and you can do all units, and so at the end you can print out everything you've ever journaled in this system. You can do it unit by unit. If you get together with colleagues as you're going through the content and you want to have that journal, you can print it out. You can print any of them along the way, whatever you've searched for in that setting that's showing on your screen, you can print. I use the journal for a number of things. There will be times that you will be specifically asked to journal about something. On that right-hand side of the regular screen, there is always a journal option there so that you can journal at any time. You might use that one to capture if you have a question about something before you're face-to-face. You can capture it right there. You might use journaling to capture an aha. You might use it to say, oh, that was a really cool activity. I want to use that when I'm doing this in my classroom, so that you can take notes for yourself that might be somewhat unrelated to the specific task that was being asked of you to do. If you have PLCs, you might structure those around this content. You could have your journal entries brought up. If a coach is working with you and they pose a specific question, you could answer that within that journaling and then have access to that to be able to bring with you, either printed or pulling up in the online format at any point. The next one down there is facilitator status, and none of you will have that at this point, so I'm going to skip that. The glossary is available anytime for anybody in the system. It's going to have common terms. Many of them are also going to be in your text as well and be called out as vocabulary. But sometimes you might get confused with what semantics and syntax are. You could go to the glossary and it's going to give you that. Oh, phoneme awareness, phonological awareness. You can go and it's going to give you what the definition of those are. At any time, you can go to that glossary and access them. The My Scores one is probably one of the most popular places over there on that hamburger menu. You can go and you can check, actually click that one too so they can see it, Laura. You can actually see all of your scores in the content. So it's going to come up first by those check for understandings and then the unit score. I saw a couple eyebrows raised. Whoa, 37%. You would need that 80% if you were going to get that certificate of mastery, but you'll have a certificate of completion as long as you've gone through the content. So as you go through, you can see this is the one where we've done it all. That will be accessible to you at any time. You can print it out if you wanted to. All the way at the top, then again, however, should be that unit 1 through 4 pre-test and post-test, and that unit then 5 through 8 is the same. You have a pre-test and a post-test again on those units. I can tell you that across the country, as we've done these kickoffs, the average pre-test score somewhere maybe 30-35% to maybe 50-55%. Maybe. I've seen a couple, 12-13%. I've seen, there was a woman in New York, upstate New York, when we were doing a kickoff. She had actual letters training like 10 years ago. And she said, I've forgotten a lot of it. I really am not using it. I'm so excited I can take it again. And she got a 76% having taken letters before, a few years ago. So seriously, when we get there, we don't expect you to get 100%. That's not the point of the pretest. We want you to be able to show your growth as you go through the content and have an understanding of where you are right now, if that makes sense. So then the final one under the hamburger menu, I believe, might be the change course. So if you are one of those coaches and you have multiple courses available to you, you can change your course. And then that's where you would log out. Okay? I'm going to go and see if we can't help figure out the login. But if we go to the intro, when I get you all logged in, and I will today, I promise. When we go to the intro is the only place in any of the content that because there's not a check for understanding, you could exit the session and move on. Here today, we're going to watch a couple of these videos together. We're not going to watch them all because you guys don't want to sit there and watch video the rest of the time that we're together. So we're not going to watch them all, but there's a couple of important ones. But then I want you to go back and watch them because they do give you good information. So come back to the intro, but there's a little sneak around so that they can get you to be able to take that pre-test. As long as you'll all go back and watch the rest of the videos. Otherwise, we've got to watch them all. And you're going to be here late. So I thought maybe I could trust you all to go back. But Laura, let's click on that intro session 1. And first, we're going to watch this first video together. Cross your fingers, the sound works.
Welcome to Letters, an in-depth professional development course for kindergarten through 3rd grade teachers in the essentials of reading, spelling, and language-related skills. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Jeff. What does Letters stand for? Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. Let's start by putting the emphasis on the word essentials. The word comes from the Latin essentia.
Essentials means the fundamentals. What's necessary? What's important?
And what is more important and more essential than learning to read? Reading is an essential skill to achieving success in careers and in life. It is essential to growing our imaginations and broadening our understanding of the diverse and dynamic world in which we live.
This Letrs professional development course is focused on how to teach the essential skills of reading and spelling.
Clap it. Celebrate.
It has been designed just for you because you are important. You are essential in your role of teaching young students how to read.
This course has been authored by Dr. Louisa Motes, a nationally recognized authority on reading instruction, and Dr. Carol Tolman, the lead National Letters trainer. With the assistance of an advisory group of National Letters trainers, Judy Dodson, Mary Dahlgren, Antonio Fierro, and Ann Whitney. They are dedicated to giving you the best possible training and how to teach your students the essential skills of reading and spelling. They understand that the Letrs motto is simple but true. Teachers, not programs, teach students to read.
I was not a confident reading teacher, and so the fact that I knew that it was based on reading, it excited me, and I was just really open to learning everything.
Tap the sounds and punch.
It's helped me reach every kid in my classroom as best as I could, and it's also just made a huge change for me in how I deliver my instruction and how I handle when they make an error. I'm confident in being able to fix it for them, tell them why. And research shows that when a kid knows why, they're more apt to change what they did wrong rather than if you just give them any old reason. It will change your teaching career, for sure.
Letrs is not a literacy curriculum. Instead, it provides in-depth knowledge and tools that teachers can use within any good reading program. It gets at the fundamentals, the what, the why, and the how.
We'll talk about why teachers need this knowledge base, but first, let's watch Letrs in action. In this first video, the teacher has students practice oral language by recognizing the syllables in words.
Very good. Emma. Dinosaur. Kennedy. Rabbit. Well, good, you're tapping the sounds, but we're clapping for syllables. So let's try it together. Rabbit. Think about the vowel sounds. Rabbit. How many did they? You want to try it again? Let's do it again. What's your word? Rabbit. Let's clap it. Rabbit. How many times did you clap? Two syllables. Good.
Letrs also emphasizes the importance of sound spelling correspondences, with the emphasis on the correct articulation of phonemes.
So the first word that we are going to make is lip. How do you say lip? Let's say it again. Lip. Let's talk about the sounds we hear in lip. O, lip. Okay, so let's take out the first sound we hear. Lip. Oh. What letter should we be taking down? Anaya? Oh, excellent. So let's go ahead and do that.
Letrs focuses on building vocabulary by understanding word relationships and the meaningful parts of words.
So he said that the word is powerful. You guys told me, what's the base word in powerful? Power. Power. What's the suffix in powerful? Full. Full. Everybody say the suffix full. 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 So if something is powerful, what does that mean?
Reading comprehension depends on building students' understanding of meaning in context. Letrs emphasizes the importance of text-driven comprehension lessons.
We left off, we stopped at a very big cliffhanger yesterday, right? Do you remember what was happening? Yes, next.
That how many dreams would Harry Ross
So Homilie's roof is carrying off, right? And who's Homilie? She's the mother, and she is a borrower, and borrowers are little people who live where? And the floor. Thank you. So when you said that what is actually being pulled up in our world? The floor. Now, do we know who's pulling it up? All they saw was light. Why? Because it was nighttime.
As these clips show, Letters helps inform several areas of language arts instruction, from the fundamentals of word recognition to sophisticated language comprehension.
So I hope that you all were kind of able to notice you're going to have lots of opportunities where you're going to see classroom instruction happening like those, and more explicit and systematic, specific around certain skills. Did anybody in that last one, the little group of students, that cutest ever little girl, and she looked up and saw that camera, and she sat up real straight because she noticed it was on camera and she had to look at it and do it right? So we're going to scroll down in a minute, although I noticed that Laura isn't back there. So I'm going to run back there. Oh, she's going to run back there and do it. We're going to go ahead, and I want you to meet the authors, and I want you to hear directly from them for a moment. Then I'm going to show you a few of the different types of activities that are in there. But while she's getting back there, I'm going to tell you one, they're working on the internet back here, so that piece of the tech is being worked on. I also have a colleague that is going out to make sure that all of the usernames and passwords are ready to go, that there must have been a glitch. So both of those pieces are being worked on while we do this together. So there were a couple of videos you noticed that we did not watch right there. Again, please go back and watch them because they are important, but today, all of us together, I don't think we need to watch every one of them, but I do want you to meet the authors.
It's still very helpful, even if it's not a whole scope and sequence. It's just to convey the general idea of simple to complex.
I'm Louisa Motes, author of Letters. And I'm Carol Tolman, co-author of Letters and a National Letters trainer. We're honored to welcome you to Letters. Letters differs from other reading professional development programs because every concept and skill is solidly based in research about how reading and language work. This approach truly makes a difference in people's lives, for the kids we teach, for teachers, and for our communities. I remember well when I was a teacher how much I and my students would have benefited if I had known what I know now. After finally learning these language essentials myself, I wondered why all teachers weren't required to know them. So Letters began. Louisa has made it her life's mission to teach teachers what they need to know to become the best they can be with literacy instruction. I'm so proud to be a part of a team of colleagues throughout the country who share the legacy and work of Dr. Motes.
And I'd like to add that without Carol's collaboration and that of my other close colleagues, Letters would not be the complete, engaging, effective training that it has become. They have been my best teachers, and I'm grateful.
Letters is very, very unique. It takes teachers on an academic and intellectual journey that is surprising to them, but wonderful for them and empowering.
I see a shift in the way teachers think about their programs and materials, a deeper understanding of why do we do what we do. Oh, this is why this program wrote it out this way.
What's special about Letters is the fact that it is structured, sequential, and cumulative learning, just like we need to provide for the kids.
Teachers who are teachers of English learners will benefit tremendously from the learning that Letters offers because it demystifies the language for teachers.
It touches them emotionally because teachers feel pain about the children that they can't reach. And when they do reach them, they feel joyous about it.
I am committed to teaching information about language and literacy that makes a difference in teachers' self-confidence and a difference in student results. I am thrilled every time a teacher says to me, "Now I know what to do, for whom, why and how. That's a teacher who is eager to go to the classroom every day. We have been teaching and learning from Letters participants like you across the United States for more than a decade.
This Letters 3rd edition, kindergarten through 3rd grade course, translates current findings from reading science into practical applications in the classroom.
It has been designed just for you because you are important. You are essential in your role of teaching young students how to read.
We welcome you to the Letters learning community, where we all strive for continuous improvement in our knowledge and skill.
We are very glad to share this learning experience with you.
So there's the authors. I'm part of that advisory team. One of my very good friends is Dr. Fiero. And if he ever comes, I don't know if we're going to get him to be able to do trainings here. Every now and then he'll even break into song and dance. I think he really was supposed to be a showman somewhere. The great thing about all of the trainers is that when they come, they're going to engage with all of you. You'll have their email addresses. You can ask them questions. They take a stake in the learning that you do and the students that all of you serve. They're committed to making sure that you're going to have the experience that you need, that you're going to learn, and they're going to help you along the way. And I can say that because while some of them are newer, the core of them have been with us for many, many years, and I've had the good fortune of being able to work with them and learn from them in that same way for all of these years. So I can say that from personal experience as well. Laura, while we're doing this, I'd like to go to maybe Unit 2 or Unit 3. You can pick. And we're going to go through one of those first sessions in one of those units and scroll down so that you guys can see a couple of the different types of activities that you might see as you come through. So she's just going to pick one. So she's in Unit 3, Session 4. At the beginning of each one, you'll note that it's going to tell you what you can expect. You might see times listed up there. You should see times listed up there in each one of these sessions. I will tell you this. It will take you less time than that says, because we're going to set an expectation that we absolutely will meet. It will likely take you less time than it says on there, but we also want to accommodate for folks who might read twice. They might highlight when they read in the text and they read slower. They might want to make sure that they really go through every activity. Some of them they might want to do more than once. Some of them, if there's a PowerPoint within that you're clicking through, not only is someone going to want to listen to it, but they're also going to want to read it themselves. So we've allowed for all of that so that it will not go beyond that maximum amount of time that's listed there. But I also want to always say, it really probably won't take you that long. In my experiences we've gone through, it hasn't taken that long. As you go through, at each one of them, at the top of each video or activity, it'll show you about how long that one will take. You might have 15 minutes on a given day that you can go in and do that work. Then you'll know you could get through however much is there. Like this one, for instance, is a PowerPoint that has audio, and down below it, with the screen the way it is on here, you'll notice where you can forward through. You know that there are 6 of them that you're going to go through. Then, as she scrolls down, there's going to be an activity around that. If you click on that sorting keywords, this one happens to be a drag and drop, and it's going to be related to what was just happening up above. So that you're learning, you might see a video or do a PowerPoint, you're going to have an activity about it, check that learning. It'll tell you if you're right or wrong, if you can clear it, go again, and then you move on to another one that's going to have one of those topic areas that you're going to go through. So you might see drag and drop, you might see true and false, there might be multiple choice. When you see videos happening, you typically will have some sort of either, here's a multiple choice, I need the right answer, or reflect on that. Here's a question about what we wanted you to observe in that snippet that you just watched. Reflect on what that question was that we asked you to be thinking about as you watched that instruction happening in that classroom. We want to make sure as you go through that every 3 to 4, maybe 5 minutes, you're actively doing something. So don't plan to just hit play and think you can walk away, because it's not going to work. You're going to have to be engaged in the content. Don't think, you know, the kids are running in and out, I'm just gonna be making dinner and I'm gonna kind of click and watch. You're gonna have to be more engaged than that. I wanna be upfront about that. We're proud of that. We know that there is online learning out there that you can hit play and go, and it clocks that you were there, whether you really were or not, and you can say that you did it. We're more vested in actual learning happening and want to make sure that we're keeping you engaged and that you're having those checkpoints as you go through along the way. Now, I want to stop for a second really quick before we move to another one and have everybody check to see if the internet connection, even the internet connection alone, we're going to do this one challenge at a time and see how we're doing. Are you all able to actually access either that site or get anywhere on the actual internet? Oh, he stepped out to the server and then he's coming back? When he left, I thought maybe he had it fixed, so. All right, I may have jumped the gun on that one, sorry. Okay. So we can't worry about the second one until we get the first one fixed, because if you can't get to the internet, then I can't have you check your usernames and passwords to make sure they're working. But here's what I'd like to do next. I'd like to go and see if we can go into Unit 4. She has to try to listen to me since I don't have complete control. And go to Session 1. And scroll down. And watch that video.
In Unit 3, we reviewed basic letter-sound correspondences, content that supports students' reading and spelling for predictable single-syllable words. Teaching basic phonics allows students to spell words like chop, string, or mop. But what about reading and spelling words like laugh, chlorophyll, or prevention? How do we teach students to read and spell words that have somewhat irregular spellings, or words that are multisyllabic? What do students need to know about roots, affixes from other languages, and about how different languages influenced English? These questions all have to do with what we call word study. In Unit 4, we address the importance of continuing our instruction in word study. To reach Aries' consolidated phase of word reading, students need to go beyond simple letter-sound correspondences to understand all layers of word structure. The more students learn about a word's structure, the more able they are to read and spell that word both accurately and automatically. We'll discover what word study entails and how effective teachers can use this in their instruction.
So after that video, scroll down to what would come right after that, Laura. This is a real challenge. I'm not used to not being in control. And click that audio button.
Some English words like ballet, twilight, or pencil might seem to be spelled irregularly. However, most spellings for words in the English language can be explained if we understand the patterns being used and the reasons why they are used. When teachers understand the reasons why words are spelled the way they are, they can share this information with their students to help make them better readers and spellers.
You can scroll down and click to the next. There you go. Then you might have to go up.
In English Isn't Crazy, Diana Hamberry King notes, for those of us who are teachers, the very richness of our language complicates our task. When we teach English, we are not teaching one, but at least 4 different languages. This fact contributes to the unpredictability of our language. However, words can't easily be categorized as predictable or not. Spellings range from perfectly regular to very odd. The oddball words with the least predictable spellings include many of the everyday words we use most often in writing.
So Laura, if you scroll down, there should be an activity after this. Aha. So let's click on each of those hotspots. It's going to tell us a little bit about each of those origins of language, the green ones.
Britannia, the lush green lands in the south and western portions of modern England, was ruled by Rome from 43 to 410. The Romans brought their technology, culture, and language. Most of the native Celtic peoples were driven into the harsher lands of northern England and Scotland. The Romans built Hadrian's Wall to keep them out of the area Rome claimed. The remains of Rome's occupation still exist in the ruins of roads, aqueducts, houses, and most important, from our perspective, in the English language.
So scroll down again. So there's what you just learned about. Scroll down again. We're not going to replay it. Now, click on Anglo-Saxon. Don't watch the video. Does anybody know which of those words is Anglo-Saxon? So if you went through and you didn't click on each of those, you didn't look at all the PowerPoints, you didn't watch the video right before this question. Anybody who has a guess, you can yell now. Which one? Proprietary. Select that one, Laura. We'll see. I think this one will let us do another one. We'll do the quiz again. Okay, we got that one wrong. Let's go to the Norman French one and try. So let's not watch the video again. Let's just see if we can do it. Which of the following words is a Norman French word? Champagne is what they say by popular command. And you were right. Okay, let's go to the next one. Latin. We're taking a little longer on this one, thinking about it. Am I hearing abduction most? The winner is abduction. Nice. Okay, so now with this Greek one, let's actually watch the video and then, oh, my ghost is distracted back there. Let's click and watch the Greek video and then we'll see if that's going to help us at all. I probably should have done that with different because Greek's, I think, one of the easier ones. But.
Scholarship and expansion of the sciences during the Renaissance brought Greek as well as Latin words into the English language. These include many philosophical, mathematical, and scientific terms. Like English compounds, Greek-derived words are often created by combining forms. For example, tele plus graph. Greek has influenced English orthography with its use of ph for ch for k, and y for I or I.
So now if we try to select, oh, that might have helped us with some of those we missed, huh? Which one do you think is the Greek word? Chlorophyll. You all were much more confident with that one. So if you try to skip, it's not really going to help you. So the information in those videos and in those PowerPoints is really there to help give that additional information, to help give you the clues that are clues that you're going to want to help with your students. Now again, in Unit 4, this is advanced word study, right? So I jumped you way ahead of where you will start your journey. And we started on advanced word study right there rather than starting with what's happening in the reading brain and what's happening there when we go through. Try the internet again. He's not in the room. I don't know if that means that, oh, I'm getting my head shaking. Okay. Okay, so we're working on that one too. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let us have another 5-minute break. Because I want to see, it's really hard for me to really get you in there if you guys can't actually do it. So I apologize for that. But I also know that you've been drinking coffee. There's still water out there. You might have an email you want to check. So if you stay close so that I can call you back in when we need to, but maybe 5 minutes or so to see if we can get some more answers. So everybody got your sheets. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping for a quick second. All of you received a sheet that's similar to this. It might not be exactly like the one I have in my hand, depending on if you're a coach or a teacher. It's going to have some listed dates. It's going to have pacing guides, information. On the literacy coaches one, there is a typo. It's not 3 units, it is 4. You might want to make a note of that. There are sets of dates. When there are sets of dates, you will not be expected to be at every one of those dates. You will be there for one of those sets of dates. Dr. Cooper's office will be telling you which dates you're assigned to. So, for instance, it says February 26th, 27th, 28th. You're not coming the 26th, the 27th, and the 28th. You will come one of those days. They will be communicating that to you so that you know which cohort you're a part of, that you'll be attending dates with, and they will send that to you. We did want to make sure, however, that you have an understanding of when those dates are. I do not know how they're going to be assigned, but I'm sure Dr. Cooper's office can tell you if there's one date you absolutely cannot be there. Perhaps you can let her know. You do want to make sure you attend those, so I'm sure she will be getting that out to you. It's a lot of people to try to coordinate and trying to keep them in a good geographical location to try to minimize travel for everyone as much as possible, although we cannot guarantee that that will be completely done with anybody. There are also those pacing guides. Those pacing guides, remember, are for each session. It'll say Unit 1, Session 1. Maybe 4 days, maybe 5 days, I think, if I remember when we were doing them correctly. Remember that that might not seem like very long, but it's only that hour, 15 minutes, maybe hour, 45 minutes. That's that session. It's not a whole unit in that 4 days. I would not do that to anybody, to expect that you can do that. And actually retain anything that you were actually completing. So it's each one of those sessions. So that hour and a half, give or take, time frame is that every 4 or 5 days to try to keep on task. If you have some life event that prevents you from finishing session 8 before you're following unit 1 face-to-face, still go to your unit 1 face-to-face. It'll be okay. You might have to catch up the next week and kind of catch yourself up a little bit. But even if you haven't done it because something happened that last week or a week along the way and it got you a little bit behind, still make those face-to-face dates. It's really important to do those. Are there other questions about those pacing guides and the information about those dates so that I can try to clear up that or call on my partners back there if I can't answer them? I want to make sure that we try to alleviate as much of that concern and anxiety as we can. Then the next piece of this is I'm not sure that we all have connectivity yet, and I'm not sure that all of the usernames are working. So we have those 2 problems, correct? And even if we get one fixed, the other one might not be. Although I can tell you that if the internet got fixed, if the usernames aren't yet, they will be in a short period of time, but it might not fit with our timing. And when I say we're going to be done at a certain time, I mean we're going to be done at a certain time, even if we have to punt and change course and figure it out. I was telling somebody here, I always have plan B, C, D, and so when A doesn't work and you go to B, then I add plan E after D. There's always the next plan. So we're going to alter our plans a little bit. We're going to alter those a little bit because we want to make sure that once someone starts that pretest, you have the opportunity to be able to finish it. Because once you start it, if you leave it without hitting submit and you go away and your computer times out, it won't be there and you'll have to start over again. So I don't want you to have to do that. So we're going to, in a moment, break for lunch. And you can have lunch because I'm not going to keep you here past 1 o'clock no matter what. It will take, on average, 25 to 35, maybe 40 minutes to do that pretest. You might want it to be quiet when you do it so you can focus. So having lots of people milling around, getting lunch, coming back from lunch might not be the best. So if you all are agreeable, if you will agree that after lunch, we're finished and you can get ready to go, as long as you promise that you will complete that pretest by the end of Wednesday. Now, you could go back to wherever you are today and be like, yeah, I've been doing this, and log in and you're fine, it's done, you don't have to worry about it. But by the end of Wednesday, we'll then run a report at the beginning of Thursday, and Dr. Cooper will be able to reach out if anybody hasn't completed it yet by first thing on Thursday. But that way, you don't have to keep sitting and waiting. And that means if you could have lunch, and then for those of you that have to travel, can get back to where you are, and then you might have that 30 minutes and you can do it then, and then you've got it done rather than sitting here and just waiting. Is that agreeable to everyone? Is that a solution you can live with? I'm not hearing anybody stomping their feet in horror. That's a second problem that is being worked on that will be done shortly, but it might take an hour or so to have that bug work, but it will be, I promise. If your password does not work, there should be on that login page a technical support button. You may use that, or you may call Laura, and you have her card in your bag. I told you that was going to come in handy. Okay? So, all of you, I appreciate your attention. I apologize for the technical difficulty. We seriously thought that we had checked all of this out before you guys all got here this morning, and it was working. So, as with things technical, we appreciate your patience with that. I hope all of you are excited to be on this journey, because this is going to change your career. I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that. I believe, Dr. Cooper, that you wanted those assurances. Do you need those back? And where would you like them to deliver them to? In the middle of your tables, you could leave those assurances if you've completed those. And they'll pick them up. And then you are welcome to go and get your lunch. Thank you all for your attention and your patience.